Okay, we have another driver question. And April asks, military. I notice you and other DSP owners, including mine, are Air Force vets. And is this who Amazon thought could pull off this logistical nightmare? No disrespect to the Air Force or any branch. Major flaw. You're working with civilians, not active duty soldiers. Vets quit this job saying it's the hardest job they ever had. But back to this major flaw. The owners struggle with their civilian employees because they don't understand the psychology of civilians, especially hood and street civilians. And that's the demographic that are being recruited. They don't have to follow orders. They don't give about ranks. They can go AWOL. They didn't sign up to die on Amazon's battlefield. It's a complete mind shift the military vet owners have to make that they aren't making the shift to. So when they come in with this tough guy, authoritative posture, language and tone, it's not respected. And property gets damaged out of retaliation. This is something I want to bring to the attention. You don't talk to the people who have your assets in their hands, literally and figuratively, if you catch my drift. It's like trash talking a waitress or a cook. Big no-no, and I understand that. How have you made the mental shift? And when I became the leader of my DSP, I got kickback right away. People don't want to be told what to do. So I had to come up with some solutions to be able to have the accountability, right? But also get the drivers to want to participate. And this was a very big challenge for me. This is the main reason why I wrote the book. I wrote that book, The Unofficial Guide for Amazon DSP Delivery Associates, using a new system that I created called the Leadership Through Training System. And I actually trademarked it. And that's because I did a combination of things. I wasn't getting anywhere with the authoritarian model. So I had to find other leadership methods that maybe worked better. And so I went back to my leadership examples. So I had people who were retired Air Force folks that were either recently out of the Air Force or had been out for some time. So they weren't, so hot-headed, and they'd had some civilian life exposure. And what I found is I didn't know this at the time because I was young and hot-headed, like many of the drivers are, that there's other ways to lead. The method that I found it worked was the servant leadership model, but with a twist. So I would have to lead by example. So what this meant is that I had to be the driver first and then be their leader second. And the way I was able to achieve this was I was a driver first. I wanted to know everything about it, learn as much as I could, become the best at it, top the scorecard every single week. And then that way, when the drivers come to me and they say, well, you don't know what it's like. Not true. I do know what it's like. And I would be able to provide them with the answers to their questions. And this was really hard. I would have to test something on the scorecard and wait an entire week to find out if it was true or not. Like if I take a picture with the dog in the photo, is it going to reject my photo? Well, sometimes it did and sometimes it didn't. I had this big St. Bernard that I said, well, this is a great test. He didn't want to move and I wasn't going to tell him to move. So I took the photo of the dog, and at that point, I was so good at the job that I would know if that photo got rejected, that was the one. And I had one rejected photo, and that was the only rejected photo. And so by testing everything, which I talk about this in my book too, called Find the Scorecard Truths, I had to know the truth of what I was telling the drivers so that when I gave them this information, it would actually solve their problem. So that is what I mean by servant leadership. Now, I can't speak for other DSP owners, but based on the questions that I'm getting and by many different people, and some are even emailing me questions, they actually care and want their team to succeed and want to become better. But the bottom line is that it comes down to information. Do you have accurate information that you can give the driver? When the driver calls the dispatcher, can the dispatcher walk them through a problem without looking at it? Or can they video call them and see, if the driver calls on their phone and is aiming it at their Rabbit, their Flex phone, can they walk them through the steps that they might need to take to be able to overcome something like data connectivity issues? Or I've got some where drivers would call me and they were trying to market business closed, but the app would not let them, even though they were inside the circle. How do you override that? So by being a driver first and then being the person that they call when they have a problem and having the answers for their problems is how you can get the confidence to build up in the DSP. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, was because I started to understand from other drivers, not across the nation at the time that I wrote the book, but now I'm realizing it's like an epidemic. We have drivers skilled at accessing the Netrodyne camera wiring, unhooking them, or even cutting the wires. And by the time this is reported and investigated, that driver's already quit. But now the DSP owner has to pay for that repair out of pocket, and it's an ongoing problem. The sabotage that's coming from drivers being upset for being either, yelled at, or the psychology of civilians or hood or street civilians, or it comes down to listening, right? If you listen to people actively and you respond to them with, repeating back what they told you. So let me get this right. You are trying to deliver the package and you describe their problem back to them and they give you the answer. That's right. Or, yes, that's exactly what my problem is. That connection right there makes that person feel like they're actually being listened to. And then when you provide them with a suggestion for how to solve their problem, they're more keen to listen to it. And then if it actually solves their problem, well, now they're probably going to respect you. The DSP owners get a lot of different sources of information, and they even have their communities of DSP owners, and they talk to each other and they try to share solutions to problems that they found worked and didn't work. And, they're at the upper level there. And so oftentimes they don't have a lot of the answers that drivers are looking for, and they become task saturated. So what I did was I bridged the gap between my DSP owner and the drivers, almost like a liaison. So I went out and I found all the information. I found that, some of the guidance in the metrics performance wasn't matching up with my actual experience out there on the road. And what I did was I created my own little cheat sheets and guides that were easily digestible, and I could just give them to my friends, my drivers. And by doing this over time, and every time I learned something, I would distribute that to the drivers, either via email or in a chat app where we communicate together, or I would, talk about it at the stand-up briefing. And the stand-up briefing is probably the most important aspect for a DSP, second only to fleet management. So when you give the stand-up briefing, you talk about the problems that drivers are having or what you learned new the next day. And by doing this, you're able to communicate the solutions that maybe other drivers found directly to all the drivers. And then you even listen to their problems and communicate it back to them through the stand-up briefing. I'll give you an example of a stand-up briefing right now.
All right, bring it in. All right. Okay. Volume count is going down, and it will go down for some time. But Amazon knows that we gotta keep the drivers, right? So what'll happen is most likely your vans will not be as full, okay? And that's so that they can create more routes, right? This is typically what happens in this period between October and November. It's really low volume, right? Most people are saving money for the holiday season, right? So they're gonna do that shopping. That's when we get busy, right? So mentally prepare yourself for random spikes in volume and just have the anticipation that things aren't always going to be the same every day, okay? And things can get kind of crazy on a random volume spike. So if you have that anticipation that when you walk in here, not everything's always gonna be perfect, not all your stuff is gonna be staged like it's supposed to, and just have that expectation that things aren't going to be perfect, and when it is perfect, okay, that's a good day. When it's not, you're like, I saw that one coming, right? And that's a good expectation to have when you work in a logistics company, but also it translates into other companies as well. When we think that things are supposed to be the same way and then expect them to be, when they're not, oftentimes our reaction to that is not a good one. It's one of frustration, and that's something that we should not do. We shouldn't react to changes in workload or work situations with frustration. When you notice yourself getting frustrated and you're out there in the field and you're just upset about something, what should you do? Pull over, take a 15-minute break, eat food and drink some water, okay? That's what I don't know too many people who are angry after they ate a good meal, right? You know that, it makes us feel good. And so replenish that energy reserve you got, throw your phone on a charger and take a break, get your mind off of work for just a couple minutes, and then time to get back to the grind. And then you've reset yourself and you're ready to rock. When you get stressed out and frustrated, that directly translates to unsafe driving, okay? Especially after loadout, that's when speeding events happen on the way to the first stop, because our mind ain't on our job, is it? It's on that stuff that already happened. Why are we gonna get upset about something that happened in the past? That don't make no sense, does it? So, identify that you're frustrated about something that happened in the past. Have a mechanism like eating food or taking your mind off of it, or call someone on the telephone. You guys have a lot of managers who listen very well to our drivers. I'm very proud of them. They have come a long way, and they do an excellent job of handling and fielding the needs of our drivers. And I would hope that you would recognize that, and when one of you are in a leadership position, whether that be here or somewhere else, that you employ those values on those people that are gonna be following you. And don't think it ain't gonna happen. Each of you are gonna become a leader. You don't even know it yet, okay? One day you're gonna turn around, look behind you, there's gonna be a whole bunch of people following you. You're gonna be like, how the heck that happened? You wanna know how that happened? Because you were following a leader and not a boss. There's a big difference between leaders and bosses. Leaders don't tell you what to do. Bosses do, okay? So identify the leaders and then follow them, and then you will become a leader. You guys have any questions? You know what to do. Have a safe day, go to your vans. Don't forget to eat food, drink water, and deliver smiles. And cut.
I had a hard time getting a stand-up briefing like that into the written book. And it doesn't look the same as text. So what I did was I put it into an audiobook. And I think for the first time, I haven't really heard anybody doing this. I actually put like live recordings of me actually giving stand-up briefings or me actually training a driver. I put it in the audiobook. That audiobook is very unique. And I noticed that when I made a whole bunch of videos for training, that my drivers weren't watching them. And it finally occurred to me that they don't have time. Like they have 10-hour work days, and sometimes it's 11, maximum time for DOT is 11 hours. So if they're working, 5 or 6 days a week because they're getting overtime or it's busy season and they need to work extra hours, they don't have time to watch videos. And half of them are new because of the hiring that just happened for Prime Week and Peak. You know, it's busy. Right now, the hiring is amplified, isn't it? We got like 30 days, I think, until the busy season starts for peak. And all those drivers have to be trained in that time. It kind of gets a little bit hectic, doesn't it? So I made an audio book so that drivers could listen to it while they're working and learn. The first part of the book is all about driver stuff, you know, the techniques and rules and things like that they have to follow, the actual triggers for problems. Like you mentioned that actually several people mentioned that the app will just tell them to return to the station because they got violations. I talk about why that happens, you know, and if you can get that information to the driver before it happens, then, well, it's going to seriously decrease the amount of drivers that violate those rules and end up getting sent back to the station, or on multiple offenses, they lose their job, which is, you know, kind of a bummer, but they have to do something to, you know, prevent the unsafe driving from happening. So my checklist that I use to train drivers on their first day OJT ride along was built by me at my DSP to prevent much of this stuff from happening. And it was like an 86 point checklist. I always say 86. There's something about that number, but it was about 86 items. Because multiple people have asked me about this checklist and wanted to know what was inside of it, I decided to actually write it in a book. You know, when you publish this stuff online, it can be taken down, you know, and that's kind of a big problem. But when you publish a book and you cement that knowledge in, that's protected by copyright. It's intellectual property, right? And that's a very protected asset in America. And the reason for that is intellectual property is important. So if you're going to find the solutions to problems and be knowledgeable about them, if you just publish it in a blog or you put it in a video and you publish it online, your account can get suspended and taken down. But when you publish a book, it's different. And so I'm going to be finishing up the book that actually was my process for training drivers, the actual checklist. Now, I created this so that my trainers could just follow the checklist, and it would, you know, remind them as they're going through their day, they're going down the checklist and making sure that each of those items is ticked. You know, did we talk to them about mobile data disable? Did I brief them on a 3-point turnaround in front of a driveway that's safe? You know, when you need to turn around without having to go all the way down to the end of the road to turn around, which would, you know, you lose about a minute of navigation there if you have to go down to the end of the cul-de-sac and turn around. If you can safely, you know, do a 3-point turn and somebody shows you that technique, well, you're not going to lose time in the navigation. Remember, the navigation is estimated, right? It's not static. Service times at the stop are, you know, estimated, but they're based on a rolling average of how many packages you have for that stop based on the last, I don't know what the metric is. I think it's 28 days of drivers delivering there. You get a good average for how long that stop should take. And that is very accurate, actually. I've found that to be very accurate. And then what's not taken into consideration is the, you know, estimated time for, how long it should take to get to the next stop. It's based on the mapping service and, you know, how long that takes. Not on average, but the estimated time that the map thinks it takes based on the speed limit. And that's about it. So if a driver has to go to the next stop and they have to go down to the cul-de-sac to turn around, it's going to take an extra minute. Well, there's a lost minute of travel time there that wasn't taken into consideration. Another thing that used to happen was until I rode along with one of the execs, I said, hey, do you guys have time in the route plan for how long it takes me to open this tote and unpack these boxes? And he said, no. And so he's, writing that down because he's going to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, they need 1 minute for each tote breakdown. So it's going to reduce the route a number of minutes based on the number of totes, because it does take time to unpack a tote, right? So by learning all of this stuff day by day, finding the truth about everything, how it works, being able to test it and prove that it works this way, well, then you can create condensed information that you can bake into a training process that you can then give to your drivers. But oftentimes DSPs and DSP owners and staff are so overwhelmed that they don't have time to do this. I did all of this on my own time, my time. After my job was completed, I'm doing that after work. And, I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to that kind of stuff and working insane hours, but I did that for the success of my DSP. I wanted us to be the best, and I wanted my drivers to know that they were the best. So I would constantly remind them at their stand-up briefing. I would also teach them things about themselves at the stand-up briefing. The stand-up briefing is very, very important, very important. And you should be able to communicate their problems that they're experiencing. Hey guys, I know it's busy out there, and you know what? It's probably going to be a bad day, but don't judge the day until it's already over. Every day. I think I gave like 1,000 stand-up briefings because it was so important, right? Now I made mistakes on these stand-up briefings, and I'm apologizing when I make mistakes, right? I'm a human being, and letting them know, hey, I'm a human being, and I understand when you make a mistake too. I'm just trying to help you get better, okay? This style of leadership is not military style. And the leaders that I saw who taught me how to listen to my people, how to work insane hours for the success of the team, and then letting the team see that, right? Now, not every DSP has this mentality, and they're their own individual franchisee, and they don't need to. Honestly, they don't need to. Some of them don't. They don't need to at all. They run a straight ship organization. They do just fine, and people come and go, and it is a revolving door.